When I came to Mexico, I was expecting to find a unique, vibrant culture. And that's what I found. But I also found something else that I wasn't expecting. A slow, quiet invasion. Not an invasion of armies or military power. It's an invasion of brands, big companies, words, and movies. See, most of the time the USA doesn't send in their army. They do something more sneaky. They send in McDonald's. And that's why I'm outside today. I want to show you 5 shocking ways that the US is slowly taking over Mexican culture. And I know it's not unique to just Mexico. They've done this around the world. And I don't know why I didn't expect it before I came here. I should have known better. I've traveled the world enough to know that I would see this happening. Why does it seem like so many more places in Mexico nowadays are starting to look like US suburbs? It's like we're seeing a literal war between local taco stands and billion-dollar companies like Starbucks. But you know what? It's not a fair fight. And every time a Starbucks like this opens up, a piece of history, like Mexican history, it closes forever. And you know what? There's a hidden cost to this convenience. These brands have bigger advantages than you would think because they run million-dollar ads and campaigns. So something like a local taco stand or a local coffee shop, they can't compete. And in the past here, people had, sometimes they had hours for lunch when at work. An hour or two they would take off to take lunch, to hang out with their family and spend time with their family. But more and more people in Mexico are working in big corporations and big companies and office buildings, and they might only get 30 minutes a day of lunch. So there's already a big disadvantage to the small restaurants. Even though they might be better with food, like their food might taste better, their food tastes better. They don't have this setup like most big corporations, big companies that sell food or coffee. They don't have a setup where it's fast, like McDonald's or Burger King or any place like that, because they were set up to make fast food. Like a local taco stand might have a really long lineup at lunch. So a person that only has 30 minutes probably wouldn't choose to eat there. So people are starting to choose these restaurants over delicious local food, even though I know a lot of them probably would rather eat the local food. Now let's not forget about digital delivery apps. These apps like Uber Eats or Rappi, they're making it easier for people to receive food. But the big brands have the money to have the better placements in these apps, even if the little companies could afford to go into these apps. And many of them can't. So there's no competition there. And a lot of people are starting to use Uber Eats and Rappi because they only have a little bit of time for lunch at work, or they need the food fast. So they're starting to choose less quality because it's quicker. In 50 years, will anybody in Mexico be speaking Spanish? I know the answer. Of course they will. But I think that it's gonna sound a lot different than what it sounds like now. See, English in Mexico isn't just changing words, it's replacing them. And it's completely changing what the language actually sounds like. Because of things like TikTok, kids in Mexico are using more and more English words. Like the other day I was somewhere and for the first time I heard a kid say 6'7". I don't know if you know what that is, but you can look it up later. It's some weird thing that kids say nowadays. But they said it, and they were Mexican. They were from Mexico. I heard it in Mexico. So examples like that. I think they're using English words because they think it's cooler, and maybe they think that Spanish is old and boring. Another thing is that if you want a good job in Mexico, a lot of times it consists of knowing how to speak good English. There's a lot of schools here that are like 50-50 English or 70% English and 30% Spanish. So when people grow up, they can get better jobs. And a lot of times because of these English-speaking jobs and these bigger corporations that are coming into Mexico, Spanish is pushed aside. A lot of things that are newer like tech tend to get English words here in Mexico. And I think it's like that in a lot of places around the world. Things like link, streaming, email, those kind of words replace the Spanish words because there are words for those things. And these words show up in the workplace too. Words like meeting, lunch, and marketing. So English is replacing a lot of Spanish words slowly. And over time, it seems like it's getting more and more. And there's another thing. Phones and websites and other things, other technologies are built basically for English. So the access to Spanish with those things is a little bit difficult. As time goes on, it's getting a little easier, but we'll see what happens. See, in the past, town squares were the place where people gather and get together and go eat and hang out and talk. But nowadays, it's becoming the mall. Just look, there's a bunch of brands here right now. Right here, Wingstop, there's Tim Hortons, there's a Starbucks here, Dairy Queen. And these malls are full of American style food courts. There's Subway in there, Panda Express. I see a Burger King. Like I said, Dairy Queen. This is just a small mall and it's full of American brands, full. There's more American brands here than Mexican brands. Honestly, the only Mexican brand is, I think this boba shop's a Mexican brand. There's the bank, but of course there's an AT&T, there's a Carl's Jr. And this doesn't just end with brands and malls, like stores and malls. It also goes into movies, like the movies that Mexican people are watching. Hey, I just wanted to take 30 seconds out of this video for a second. I hope you're enjoying it. But I want to tell you about this WhatsApp group that I created. It's a place where you can get notifications from me and other videos that I haven't posted on YouTube. I mean, we don't just talk about Mexico, we talk about all different things, but come join. We'd love to have you there. The link is in the description below. Now let's get back into the video. Now see, for many people around the world, carrying like a Starbucks cup around the city or being able to afford Starbucks is like a status symbol. And it's no different here in Mexico. The middle class is growing here and people want to show that off. It's not just about eating food, but showing that you can afford the American lifestyle. If you ask a young boy in Mexico what his favorite superhero is, he would probably say Spider-Man. And Mexican stories are being buried under Hollywood blockbusters. When a country stops telling its own stories and its own myths, does that culture even exist anymore? Or is it getting invaded? Let's just take a look at this Hollywood takeover. Look, I'm at the movie theater right now. It's not actually open, but look at all the movies on the wall. Scream, Michael Jackson. Don't know what that is. There's not even one Mexican movie here. Not even one, I don't think. The posters are in Spanish, but they're not even, like Cinemex is not even showing one Mexican movie right now. That people are going to theaters and watching more and more American movies, which can have effect on the culture for sure. And everything in the movies and on TV is starting to be dubbed in Spanish, which is fine, but it just means that more and more people are watching translated American life. What if I told you that the all-American cowboy was a Mexican invention? Would you believe me? The US has a massive habit of taking Mexican culture, like Mexican things from Mexican culture, and selling them back to the world as Southwestern or American style. This from fashion to food and everything in between. Mexican culture is being rebranded right under our noses. You see, the US borrows ideas, but they easily forget where those ideas came from. But the ropes, the hats, the boots, all of that came from Mexico. And ranching skills were invented by Mexican people hundreds of years ago. But today, in movies and TV shows, they make it look like it's an American invention. And instead of calling things Mexican style, they'll call things like Southwestern style to still make it sound like it was from America, from the US. And they make it sound this way just so they can easily erase Mexican culture behind it. There's been numerous times where big US clothing brands would actually use Mexican style weaving, like the patterns from their weaving. These patterns come from indigenous people, and these clothing brands hardly ever credit those people. And because of big US fast food companies, people all around the world think that those yellow hard shell tacos is Mexican food, thanks to places like Taco Bell. This generation after generation style cooking, thousands of years of cooking, just gets replaced by a fake version. So when a tradition is taken by the USA, it usually loses its heart and its soul and is replaced by something else. Like a spiritual pattern or a traditional outfit becomes a costume or a cool design. And that's it. The deep meaning behind it kind of just disappears. And it becomes something else that it wasn't meant to be. Mexico's greatest superpower has always been family. But that's changing. The American dream of being number one and making it on your own is slowly breaking through the we first mentality that Mexico has built over the last many centuries. See, people in Mexico are starting to get a little bit more money, a little bit more richer, but they're also starting to get a little bit more lonelier. And there seems to be a heartbreaking shift in Mexican values. Traditionally, Mexican life is built around family. Having food together, like having Sunday lunch, is like the glue that keeps family together here. But it seems like US hustle culture is starting to seep in slowly. And people are starting to become too busy for their own families. Having some of the highest working hours in the world might be one of the factors, actually. But American culture teaches everyone around the world that being number one is your main goal. This makes people focus more on their personal goals and their bank account more than checking in on how their community is doing. Another thing I've noticed is their judgment on stuff. Not everybody's like this here or anywhere, but the world itself and as a whole is becoming more materialistic. Like instead of judging someone on if they're a good person or not, a lot of people nowadays are judging themselves on how nice their car is, how big their house is, what they have and others don't. This is a big value in the USA, this materialistic value. And it's not a good thing. When you switch from a we culture to a me culture, you might have more money, but you tend to lose support systems. If people are getting more successful at work, it's a given that they're gonna feel more lonely at home. So if you made it this far in this video, I'm sure you liked it. And I have good news because I have more. Please go check this one out. This is a good one. This is how Hollywood lies about Mexico and how it hurts Mexican people. Check it out, click it, go watch it. I'll see you there. And thanks for watching this video.